Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone around the world. I am Paul Sisler, and this is In the Moment. If you make note at the end of our opening and all that, I put up the suicide crisis hotline. I myself, sometimes have these dark thoughts, and you just might need to reach out to somebody, whether it's friends, families, um, whatever your network is that you can rely on. And if you don't feel like reaching out to them or you have no one to reach out to, the hotline is there to help. Um, with suicide rates being up, it's really, really important for people to know that there is someone out there you can talk to. With that said, welcome to Who Wrote the Bill? And today we have our host, Jack Cunningham. Hello, Jack. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Real good, real good. And we have Reggie Townsend. Hello, Reggie. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Paul. Great to see you, and great to meet Jack for the first time.
It's great to meet you
Oh,
too, Reggie.
all right, all right. And Reggie, I wanted to thank you and all that. When you did your veteran space and all that, you talked about suicides, and I knew they were up. I just didn't realize they were up as much as they are. Back in 2001, they were around 21,000 suicides a year. And last year we hit over 49,000 suicides. And this year it looks like it's going to top out over the 50,000 mark. And it's something that I take to heart, as someone that has had those dark thoughts throughout my life and different occasions. It's helpful to have someone to talk to, so I'm making sure that that's out there and people can reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Paul. It really is important for us to be there with each other, especially when people are facing times of darkness. And uh, I just really appreciate that. Yeah, it's great to have that support and just see that around. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you again, Reggie, and all that for that information. And all of my shows now, I do this. All of my shows, I put this up. I'll also put it up there again at the end. All right. You guys ready to look at this bill today?
I'm excited to see what you have for us.
Yes, please.
All right. All right. Let me see here. Make sure I have the right one up. Okay. Let me get this set. Okay. Here is the summary for this bill. This bill requires the National Telecommunications and Information Administration to examine and report on the cybersecurity of mobile service networks and the vulnerability of these networks and mobile devices to cyber attacks and surveillance conducted by adversaries. The report shall include 1, an assessment of the degree to which providers of mobile service have addressed certain cybersecurity vulnerabilities. 2, a discussion of the degree to which these providers have implemented cybersecurity best practices and risk assessment frameworks. And 3, an estimate of the prevalence and efficacy of encryption and authentication algorithms and techniques used in mobile services and communications equipment, mobile devices, and mobile operating systems and software. So, from this, who do you think wrote the bill? Democrats or Republican? Jack.
You want to take the I was just about to say, go take the lead on this, Reggie, but based solely on what we have so far, which we're going to get into a lot more shortly, I really don't know. I really don't know. It seems to be like something that most people could get behind on, essentially, if we're talking about cybersecurity and just the report and data on how certain things are going to come around from that. I really think that it could be bipartisan. From what I know, I think that it could be bipartisan just based solely on what we've heard so far.
Okay. Give me one, though. Which one do you think sponsored it, Democrat or Republican?
Now you're really putting me in the spot.
Yes.
Let's see. I guess I'll go with a Republican sponsor.
Republican. All right, Reggie.
I'll say Democrat, and the reason why partially I think it's just the language of it. Even though I do believe that it is bipartisan, I agree with Jack on that. I do agree this is bipartisan because I believe that Republicans and Democrats have talked about this in numerous hearings, even with the FBI, about cybersecurity and privacy rights for every American, especially when they get on their mobile devices or when they're on their computers. This is something that Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate are very big on, and they've been talking about this for a while in hearings. So I don't even think you'll see an argument between AOC or even Marjorie Taylor Greene about this. Like, I think that if you sat them together in one room and they talked about it, this would be something they would actually agree on, and that would be shocking. But I think this is definitely a Democrat written bill.
Okay, so Reggie so far is Democrat, Jack is Republican. Let us go into now. There were, I believe, 2 summaries to it, and of course, I read the final summary. There's 3 texts to it, so I'm going to read the 3rd text. And this bill has been passed by the House.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. All right. Section 2. Report on cybersecurity of mobile services network. Excuse me. A, in general, not later than 1 year after the date of the enactment of this act, the Assistant Secretary, in consultation with the Department of Homeland Security, shall submit to the Committee on Energy and Commerce of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation of the Senate a report examining the cybersecurity of mobile service networks and the vulnerability of such networks and mobile devices to cyber attacks and surveillance conducted by adversaries. Now, that's pretty much what we just read in the summary. Okay. So B, matters to be included. The report required by subsection A shall include the following. Number 1, an assessment of the degree to which providers of mobile service have addressed, are addressing, or have not addressed cybersecurity vulnerabilities, including vulnerabilities the exploitation of which could lead to surveillance conducted by adversaries, identified by academic and independent researchers, multi-stakeholder standards and technical organizations, industry experts, and federal agencies, including in relevant reports of A, National Telecommunications and Information Administration, B, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and C, the Department of Homeland Security, which would be 1, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and 2, the Science and Technology Directorate. All right. So, Reggie, still a Democrat, or are you going with Republican?
I'm still going to go with Democrat on this. Like I said, these are issues that both parties would be completely aligned on.
Okay. All right. Jack?
I'm still saying Republican. I agree wholeheartedly with your point, though, Reggie, that it's bipartisan. I don't think that there are many people who would be against it, securing our cybersecurity and making sure that our population is secure from foreign adversaries. And especially since considering that it passed the House, I still want to say Republican.
All right. Let's go to the next part. Number 2, a discussion of A, the degree to which customers, including consumers, companies, and government agencies, consider cybersecurity as a factor when considering the purchase of mobile service and mobile devices, and B, the commercial availability of tools, frameworks, best practices, and other resources for enabling such customers to evaluate cybersecurity risk and price trade-offs. Jack, still Republican?
Well, let's see. I still think so. I still think so. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Reggie, still Democrat?
Yes, still Democrat. I think it's a moderate Democrat for sure. Because honestly, when I look at it, um, I don't see anything that really stands out yet. That's a huge red flag. I mean, there was a couple of words and stuff like that, but not really something that stands out that would make me change my mind.
Okay. Now, so far, because I'm going to kind of do this a little bit different. So far, do you see this as a good bill, Reggie?
Yes, so far, so good. Yes.
Okay. Jack?
So far, yes, it does seem like a good bill.
Okay. Let's go to number 3. A discussion of the degree to which providers of mobile service have implemented cybersecurity best practices and risk assessment frameworks. Number 4, an estimate and discussion of the prevalence and efficacy of encryption, authentication, algorithms, and techniques used in each of the following: A, mobile service; B, mobile communications equipment or services; C, commonly used mobile phones and other mobile devices; D, commonly used mobile operating systems and communication software and applications. All right. Has anybody changed? Okay.
No.
Still a
No.
good bill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 5, a discussion of the barriers for providers of mobile service to adopt more efficacious encryption and authentication algorithms and techniques, and to prohibit the use of older encryption and authentication algorithms and techniques with established vulnerabilities in mobile service, mobile communications, mobile equipment or services, and mobile phones and other mobile devices. I don't know why that word gives me so much trouble, but it does. All right. And we're still the same. Nothing changed, right?
Nope.
Okay. Number 6, an estimate and discussion of the prevalence, usage, and availability of technologies that authenticate legitimate mobile service and mobile communications equipment or services to which mobile phones and other mobile devices are connected. No change?
No.
Still a good
Nope.
bill?
So far, yeah.
Okay. Number 7, an estimate and discussion of the prevalence, costs, commercial availability, and usage by adversaries in the United States of cell site simulators, often known as international mobile subscriber identity catchers, and other mobile service surveillance and interception technologies. Are we still good?
So far, yes. And
Yeah.
that part actually intrigues me a lot. That paragraph intrigues me a lot.
Okay. And usage by adversaries in the United States of cell site simulators, often known as international mobile subscriber identity catchers. All
I'm
right.
not sure what that term means. I don't like. I'm not sure what that terminology.
Reggie?
I could be mistaken, but basically what they're trying to do here in this bill is introduce, or at least are trying to get are trying to get these private companies, particularly these cell phone companies or whatever the case may be, to be able to not only pick up on whenever, say, for example, somebody is using devices, like foreign adversaries are using devices to spy on the everyday customer or a government official and stuff like that, that they'll have the technology to be able to pick it up and then report it to law enforcement or wherever the proper authorities are.
Right.
And that's one thing. And another thing, I think what they're trying to do here too, and it may be a small, minute thing, is also pick up on, these adversaries from bootlegging the technology as well, because as you know, one of the biggest adversaries in doing that is China, where they steal like so much intellectual property from American companies, particularly Apple, because they make bootleg iPhones all the time.
Right.
So that may be another thing too. But
Right.
I think this is where I think the first part that I was talking about is the substance here, the real substance.
Right. This is also something that's going to open up regular people like you and me to possibly have our information known and looked at.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Now, they don't disclose that. They don't say that. They don't insinuate that. But just know that could be part of what is included within this. And that would take further discussion and a breakdown. And I'm sure Homeland Security is going to like this, because this could open up Homeland Security and NSA to look at our cell service, look at who we're being provided for, look at our information and know who we are. Now, I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying it could.
Sounds sort of like the warrantless wiretapping after the Patriot Act.
Possibly. But I think that tech companies like Google and Apple may take exception to that part alone, because of the fact of particularly Apple, because of the fact that Apple is really big on privacy when it comes to their devices. I mean, every device that you own, and with their ecosystem, everything's encrypted. So unless you have, their thing is unless you have, probable cause and a warrant, they can't even give you the encrypted information, because it belongs to the user, and they purposely do that. So that way, and they're not going to make a key to break those encryptions. So I think this speaks to a heart of a much bigger matter than what maybe Apple or Google may provide, but this is definitely something worth digging into.
Right. Hey, Nick, I saw you try to come on, and then I put you up, and then you canceled back out. You can try coming back in again if you like, and I'll bring you back up.
Yeah, that whole number 7.
We had Nick pop up for a moment, and then he just disappeared. So I'm waiting to see if he comes back in.
Sure.
Yeah, because I do agree that part of it can be looked at both ways. It can be looked at as a tool, obviously, to try to pick up on, the bad guys if they're trying to, to get into an average citizen, or maybe even a government official's service, or tap into their conversations and stuff like that. But I also look at the other side, where it can be intrusive and jump into the privacy of the everyday American, because honestly, like, who's to say that this conversation that we're having right now is not being monitored by the federal government? We don't know that. Right. But exactly. at the same time, I think that a lot of times, I think people, I think, get kind of too tied up into the conspiracy theory of the government's always watching you and Big Brother. But when you look at bills like this, and when you see that, paragraph 7 or that subparagraph, right, that is a big deal. It's a huge deal.
Right. So are we still with the same party? And do we have a red flag, or are you still okay with this?
I have a red flag for
yeah. I think it's a red flag. I'm sorry, Jack, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that I still think it's a Republican bill.
Okay.
Well, I think given this, I still think that it's a moderate Democrat, but I look at paragraph 7, particularly that highlighted package, that is a red flag for me.
Okay. All right. C, consultation. In preparing the report required by subsection A, the Assistant Secretary shall, to the degree practicable, consult with 1, the Federal Communications Commission, 2, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, 3, the intelligence community, 4, the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency and the Department of Homeland Security, 5, the Science and Technology Directorate of the Department of Homeland Security, 6, academic and independent researchers with expertise in privacy, encryption, cybersecurity, and network threats. 7, participants in multi-stakeholder standards and technical organizations, including the Third Generation Partnership Project and the Internet Engineering Task Force. 8, international stakeholders. Let me restate that. 8, international stakeholders. Oh, here we go. We got Nick coming in. Hello, Nick.
Hey, sorry, everybody. Glad to be here.
All righty.
Good to see you, Nick.
Hey, Jack.
In coordination with the Department of State as appropriate. Number 9, providers of mobile service, including small providers or the representatives of such providers, and rural providers or the representatives of such providers. Number 10, manufacturers, operators, and providers of mobile communications equipment or services and mobile phones and other mobile devices. 11, developers of mobile operating systems and communications software and applications. And 12, other experts that the Assistant Secretary considers appropriate. And let me put that up there one more time. Other experts that the Assistant Secretary considers appropriate. Okay. Nick, welcome to this. I see you're a little late. That's all right. It happens. That life happens. No worries. Are you getting the gist of the bill so far?
So I watched it a little bit from the viewer side, and then just getting this end of it. I'm missing the beginning part, but from what I gather, it has to do with cell phone security.
Yes, cybersecurity and the providers, customers, so on and so forth, making sure that basically they provide the amenities to ensure the safety of our cyber networks.
How about Reggie? Can I get a recap from you?
Well, so far, what we've been talking about is just whether, one, this is a Republican or Democrat sponsored bill, whether it's bipartisan. And some of the things that we looked at was earlier, he was reading one of the subparagraphs, paragraph 7, where it talked about the implications of our adversaries, preventing our adversaries from being able to, pirate our networks and stuff like that, and being able to find it and report it. But we were also talking about how that could be detrimental to the average consumer, because then that gives them almost carte blanche to look at personal data for me and you, for the average consumer. So these are some of the things that we were talking about ad nauseum. But the last couple of things that he spoke about was the stakeholders and paragraph 12 itself. But so far, I think you've gotten pretty much a good gist of what's going on. I mean, the bill itself, I think, is a sound bill, but from what I felt like a moderate Democrat wrote this bill, and Jack felt like it was a Republican bill. But the more that I'm reading into it, it's starting to sound more Republican. It really is.
Interesting. Well, I know that the Patriot Act was bipartisan, and I know that the scare of Huawei is bipartisan, and rightly so. So I don't have a dog either way. I don't know.
All right. Reggie, on these last 12 aspects that I just read in relation to who the preparing of the report required by subsection A, what are your thoughts?
Well, I honestly think that I want to say Republican, but I honestly think this was a moderate Democrat that wrote this. And the reason why is because of the fact that, like he had mentioned, like Nick had mentioned, a lot of the Patriot Act, what went on with Huawei during the Trump administration, a lot of that was bipartisan. And I could see a moderate Democrat jumping on something like this very quickly, trying to establish a bill and getting something passed, especially in the 118th Congress, where Republicans really aren't taking up any Democrat bills and introducing them on the floor. But if the Republicans can benefit from this and it's got bipartisan support with Republicans, they would definitely pull something like this on the floor.
All right. Jack, your assessment.
Well, I missed some of that. I had to take my dog outside. Um, For what I can tell, though, I still think it's Republican. I can see where like some Democrats, like moderate Democrats, could get behind this, like Reggie mentioned. Uh, but that's where I'm at right now.
All right. Let's go to this next part. Scope of report. The Assistant Secretary shall 1. Limit the report required by subsection A to mobile service networks. 2. Exclude consideration of 5G protocols and networks in the report required by subsection A. I'll read that one again. Exclude, exclude consideration of 5G protocols and networks in the report required by subsection A. 3. Limit the assessment required by subsection B1 to vulnerabilities that have been shown to be A, exploited in non-laboratory settings, or B, feasibly and practicably exploitable in real-world conditions. And number 4, consider in the report required by subsection A vulnerabilities that have been effectively mitigated by manufacturers of mobile phones and other mobile devices. Jack, your thoughts?
Well, I mean that like there's just red flags to me all over like in this. Like I think like it's great in premise, but like just if you mind scrolling up just a little bit more, like exclude 5G protocols. I don't understand why. I think that since 5G is a bigger thing coming out, I think that that should be looked into for exploring any vulnerabilities. Uh, and aside from the, I don't know, there's a lot that's between the lines that I'm getting off of this, and I red flag all over. I still think Republican though.
Okay, Reggie?
Okay. Now, as far as paragraph that's, subparagraph, that paragraph 2, as far as excluding or in consideration of 5G protocols and networks in a report required by subsection A, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't see it too much as a red flag. I see it more like a yellow flag because of the fact that if our 5G network gets compromised and they think that maybe this is just something standard by Verizon or something standard by T-Mobile, and say, for example, ransomware attack hits one of those networks, they don't report it for 48 hours, and then they decide to report it on national TV or report it to the FBI that they got ransomware attacked and compromised. That's millions of customers without service. And so I think this is huge. So for me personally, I think that this to me is a yellow flag, not necessarily a red flag, because of the fact that honestly, I think that big tech companies should be transparent if they have problems. I mean, we're all mobile phone customers. I'm not going to assume that none of us are. And we probably have had, problems with our mobile service from time to time, whether we're in a dead zone or service has dropped somewhere or whatever the case may be, because their service just went out for a certain amount of time. It happens. But as a customer, wanting that transparency from that company is important. So I think that's probably why they did that, is that way they can allow the company to give that transparency instead of the government forcing them to do that. But again, I left it as a yellow flag just for that one slither of a reason. But everything else, I mean, to me, everything else is more or less like every day, the normal every day. If somebody breaks into your cell phone or hacks your phone, those aren't things that the federal government needs to always be involved in.
All right. Nick, your thoughts on what you've heard so far?
I haven't caught too much of the bill, but from what I can tell, what Reggie and Jack are talking about, I don't like all this set in stone government rules. I'd rather them not address a lot of these things, and leave it more open to interpretation down the line. As I feel like going forward with such these little peculiarities, these little like this exclusion of not having to report. That seems strange to me. So I'm suspicious as is. My yellow flag is up for sure.
Yes.
And I have no idea who wrote it.
Okay. All right. If you were to guess, if you were to throw out one side or the other, which side would you think more than likely?
I would go moderate Democrat.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Form of report. E. Number 1, classified information. The report required by subsection A shall be produced in unclassified form, but may contain a classified annex. 2, potentially exploitable unclassified information. The Assistant Secretary shall redact potentially exploitable unclassified information from the report required by subsection A, but shall provide an unredacted form of the report to the committees described in each subsection. Okay. Reggie.
As far as I can see, I don't see anything that really stands out too much, except for maybe the classified information part in paragraph 1. I mean, it sounds like to me, maybe it's the Marine in me, but it sounds like to me that they're kind of being a little inconsistent with the deciding what's going to be classified and what's not going to be classified. And I think that's, to me, inconsistent, and it's not going to fly. To be honest with you, I think this part of the bill is bad for the bill.
Okay. All right. Still Democrat or Republican?
Democrat. I still think a moderate Democrat wrote this. But now I'm starting to think this is a bad bill only because of the second part of the bill, especially with that 5G all the way to this point, especially when you're talking about classified and unclassified information,
right,
and the inconsistency. This is starting to become a bad bill.
Right. Especially if they can get our information and then classify it. And classify that they're getting our information. Jack, your thoughts?
Well, I still think that this is a Republican thing, and like this is like, I think that for something as serious as this, for exploitable information should be classified, but everything else, and like who determines what potentially exploitable information is? I think that if there are any vulnerabilities, we should be aware of them. How are companies who are producing this, whether it be our like Verizon, AT&T, or whatnot, all of these companies should be able to look into this and say, okay, we have some serious flaws. We should be doing these solutions now. So I don't know. I just think that it's kind of confusing to see the this here, as well as having an unredacted form to the members of these committees. I feel like there's a lot of like just different variables that are going around with that.
All right. Nick, any thoughts with this new information right here?
I will say I do like the fact that they're providing a necessity to provide an unredacted form of the script, because typically with redacting, it's all one way and never the other, and so everything always gets the chance to be classified, and seldom is there a reason to see it in its original form once the rules pass. But again, I think it's overly complicated, and I don't see, if you're I don't see the reason to classify all this in the first place. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go again, moderate Democrat, and again, the flags are on the field.
All right. I'm going to go into the definitions now. Adversary, the term adversary includes any unauthorized hacker or other intruder in a mobile service network, any foreign government or foreign non-government person engaged in a long-term pattern or serious instances of conduct significantly adverse to the national security of the United States. Assistant Secretary means the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Communications and Information. Entity means partnership, association, trust, joint venture, corporation, group, subgroup, and other organization. Intelligence community. The term intelligence community has the meaning given that term in Section 3 of the National Security Act of 1947. Oh, wow, that was scary. I thought my internet went down for a second. Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good.
Intelligence community, we'll have to check that out in the United States Code. Mobile communications equipment or service. The term mobile communications equipment or service means any equipment or service that is essential to the provision of mobile service. Mobile service, either or both of the following services: commercial mobile service, as defined in Section 332D of the Communications Act of 1934, and commercial mobile data service, as defined in Section 6001 of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012. Again, both are under United States Code 47, Title 47. Person means individual or entity. United States person means an individual who is a United States citizen or an alien lawfully admitted to for permanent residence, or an entity organized under the laws of the United States or any jurisdiction within the United States, including a foreign branch of such entity or any person in the United States. And that would be the end of that. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to read the first paragraph for Nick here. Not later than 1 year after the date of the enactment of this act, the Assistant Secretary of Consultation with the Department of Homeland Security shall submit to the Committee on Energy and Commerce of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation of the Senate a report examining the cybersecurity of mobile service networks and the vulnerability of such networks and mobile devices to cyber attacks and surveillance conducted by adversaries. That's the premise of the bill. And pretty much everything that we read kind of reiterated that until I got up to that Section 7. An estimate and discussion of the prevalence, cost, commercial availability, and usage by adversaries in the United States of cell site simulators, often known as international mobile subscriber identity catchers, and other mobile surveillance and interception technologies. That's where it started to kind of get a little hinky as delving into our information.
Yeah, well, I think that this might be a huge effort to backtrack and make up for lost ground in regards to the Huawei and the foreign interference. It is true that foreign actors have been able to infiltrate our networks and our mobile communication networks, but beyond that, our electricity networks. I mean, Russia, planted some chips inside some transistors, I think, and we did the same thing back to them. And so I think this might be an effort, though it might be out of a paranoid place, but I think it might be an effort to just sweep back through all of our telecommunications and really make sure that we're not being spied on.
Okay.
Right.
It makes sense. I like that. Democrat or Republican?
I'm going to go with Republican because it's scared of China.
Okay. Jack?
I still am I'm still leaning with Republican, and same thought process as Nick. Really, it's just seeing all of these things and the fear mongering of adversaries by the Republican Party as of late. That's what I'm sticking to, at least for now.
Okay, Reggie?
Well, I still say moderate Democrat, but it wouldn't surprise me if Nancy Mace wrote this, only because of the fact that she's one of the very few people that I know that has hardline stance against China, just like a few other moderate Republicans have. I mean, this has been a Republican stance for some time, their hardline stance against China. But they also keep forgetting that China isn't the only country with this kind of technology. Russia also has this technology as well. So, and it's been proven that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. So if And all it took for them to do was to make posts on social media and to also, have people, get text messages saying, hey, you can vote by text and things of that nature. So it's not a far-fetched thing that a Republican wrote this, but I still think that a moderate Democrat did with the best of intentions. But when you get to paragraph 7, and especially when it comes to the classified portion, I think they boogered that one pretty badly.
All right. Okay, the big reveal, everybody. The big reveal. Anna Eshoo, Democrat, California 16, introduced the bill.
Whoa, no kidding. What?
Democrat bill. It's been through the House Energy and Commerce and in the Senate, the Commerce, Science, and Transportation. The Senate received the bill on 3/8/2023 and read twice. It has passed the House. And let me, I have to reduce size so that I can go to co-sponsors. And the co-sponsor on this is Representative Kat Kamick, Florida.
Oh, it's Kat, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kat. Yeah, I'm familiar with Kat Carmack.
Yep. So, yes, it is a bipartisan bill. There was only one sponsor and one co-sponsor. That's it. Presented to the House and voted on. Let me see the roll call on this. One roll call vote. And let's see. Roll call. We had 191 yays from the Republican, 202 yays from the Democrats, 22 nays from the Republicans, 8 not voting for the Republicans, 8 not voting for the Democrats, no independents. Total was 393 votes for yays, 22 for the nays.
Wow.
So
that got a lot more support than I anticipated.
It was indeed a bipartisan bill in the House. Does that surprise any of you?
No, honestly, I don't think it surprises me in the slightest.
I figured it was going to be bipartisan, but since we had to pick one or the other, I figured Republican. But wow, I was not expecting that many votes in support.
Yeah, I would just add that once I was able to read the summary in the first paragraph, and tie it to the Huawei fear, I think that is a bipartisan scare. I mean, I've seen the hearings on that. You notice with the Chinese spy balloon, the whole government absolutely freaked out over that, and I think maybe there's a feeling of that we're exposed in a lot of these areas. And so, anything to do with military spending or homeland defense gets the green light in all forms, I think.
Absolutely. And you remember how they were going after TikTok and stuff like that, and again, both sides of the aisle. And this opens us up. And again, this bill will probably pass in the Senate. Okay. It hasn't been tabled yet. And it hasn't been brought to the floor. It's still going through committee. But I think when it's presented, it will probably pass, probably by 90 votes. I think it'll be a 90-10. I think there might be about 10 that say no on it, but I think the majority will pass it. And it won't matter if President Biden signs off on it or not. It'll just go back to the House, repass it, and then go back to the Senate and repass it. So, president not needed. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. A lot of people put a lot of power in the president when the president's not needed to pass a bill.
Nope, not at all.
Mm-mm.
So, good bill or bad bill? Let's start with Jack. Jack, good bill or bad bill?
Hey, come on! You had me start out in the very beginning. You're gonna have me
All
start.
right.
At the
I'll go with
very end?
Reggie. I'll go with Reggie. Go ahead, Reggie. Reggie, good bill or bad bill? And if you say bad bill, please explain why. If you say good bill, explain why.
I say overall, looking at it, I'll say it's a decent bill. And I say decent because the first part of the bill makes a lot of sense. But when you get into stakeholders, and then when you get into privacy, when you get into the average consumer, and you're getting into 5G networks, and then you're getting into, the proprietary stuff. But then when you get into the classified information, being able to say, okay, I can look at your mobile stuff, it's unclassified, but then all of a sudden I can classify it for ourselves. To me, that's where it started to become problematic. That's why I say decent. I won't say good or bad. I'll say decent.
Okay. Jack?
For me, I think like in theory, a lot of these components are good. I do think that we need to have a strong cybersecurity framework to protect our privacy and protect the interests of the American people from potential scams or cyber attacks from other countries. What concerns me is as we go further into it, some of these components that, at least to me, make it really problematic. I'm saying like it's kind of similar to Reggie, decent but leaning bad. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Nick?
I think it's fine to want to upgrade our security and to enforce, and to go back over our network and check things. So in that regard, I think it's okay, but again, I don't. I think that there should be more provisions to declassify more and to see how far that the Chinese government may have gotten. I don't see what reason classifying that there's any advantage to classifying that. And I'm just curious, as a citizen in the United States, how far have they gone, and what is at risk as far as my information, as far as foreign actors goes. Like you were saying, Reggie, I mean, many countries have access to this type of technology, and if we find that the Saudis have been spying on us, it's neither here nor there. But I would like to know, and I think it shouldn't fall to some subcommittee. I hope that maybe you could declassify the findings of all of this investigation. It is a public investigation, and I think it should be treated that way.
Okay. I'm going to throw another component into this for you guys to think about, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to ask you again. The classified aspect, I think that's a good aspect if what I say plays relevancy to you, okay? Because remember, it will be unclassified without redactions to even the stuff that's classified will be non-redacted to the committees that it's referred to. Okay, so the committees will have it in its full written aspect, okay, without any redactions. So with AI technology, and here's what I want you to think about. Part of being able to go in and look at where the information is coming from. This will also give them a chance to look in and see, is it a human being or is it not a human being? Is it AI that is making the breach, hacking the system? And if it's AI, you probably don't want the public to know that AI has hacked your system, okay? Because that would create a public scare in relation to AI. Now, granted, should the public have that knowledge if it is AI doing it? Because almost everything that we have that's connected to the internet in some way, shape, or form, if AI gets in there, it can disrupt it. So even your cell phone that almost every American has and walks around with, if it's hacked by AI, and AI is now listening to every conversation you say, is learning from you, or is presenting things to you, that could be dangerous. Should the people know about that or shouldn't they? And should the government have full access to be able to handle something like that without the public knowing? So now with that added aspect to this, do you think this is a good bill? Let's go with Nick this time first.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. There's so many other things I would rather fight about, and this is not in my security clearance level. I just wish that they were more straightforward again with what they were trying to do with it. And again, if you're going to have a public investigation into the telecommunications, make it that. Don't package it within a bill and all these other things.
Okay. Reggie.
Yeah. So I think I stick by my stance when I say it's decent because it doesn't address AI. Like it doesn't even say AI. It says algorithm, but it doesn't say anything about AI in it. So unfortunately, that would be a false premise because of the fact that they're not even talking about artificial intelligence being a catalyst in this. Because obviously, the bad actors aren't just AI. AI is just the technology that they use, or could be problematic if they use it in that nature. So to prevent that, go ahead.
Let me add to that. Remember the word adversary. When you go under Title 47 of adversary and all that, AI could be included as adversary.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Somebody has to be using it in order for it to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So the whole thing is, if they're trying to find, trying to prevent bad actors from doing this, that's fine. If they want to regulate AI, that's fine. But you still have to have transparency with the American people when it comes to this. And the biggest reason why I say that is because of the fact that if you have transparency, you won't have a panic if people know that, hey, this such amount of data was compromised. Perfect example. Back in 2016, the VA's data was breached. And I happen to be a veteran. I received a notification and an email from the VA and a phone call from the VA saying that I was one of, unfortunately, the victims of that data breach. Because of that transparency, because the VA was able to tell me step by step what happened eventually by the end of it and the end of their investigation, my mind was put at ease because of the fact that I was worried about my personal medical and other data being out there for the world to see, and they shouldn't have it. But the fact that they were able to get back to me and be transparent did put my mind at ease. So that's where I'm at with that.
Okay. And Jack.
There's a fine line between where the government should keep information from people and the government informing people of what's going on. And I say that because if there is an immediate national threat, or if there is a potential for a very, very thing that could be avoided or averted, that's an example from my perspective, which I think that people shouldn't be informed of for the very fear of causing a panic. At the same time, when it's stuff that, and I think that Reggie, you said it very well, it's when something does happen, like say if your information gets out there or anything affecting you gets out there, that the government knows about, it is their responsibility to inform you, the public, that, hey, this has happened, this is what we need to do to fix it. And that accountability is great, not just for the ease of mind of the people, but in identifying the causes of that from looking into the accountability. That is also good to the public's mindset on if there need to be any legislative changes or policy changes as well. And so I think that with all of that being said, I don't know, like it gives me some concern.
Okay. My final stance on this bill is a yellow flag. And I kind of, here's where I have an issue with it. And this is where I kind of side with Nick. If this is an investigation, open up an investigation. You don't need to make legislation. It's a waste of taxpayer time and dollars. Okay. So if this is an investigation, open it up as an investigation. If this is something for our country to study the demographics of what's going on, and it's a task force base of looking at information to try to come up with plans to better our country and protect it, then I want it to be stated in the bill that that's the purpose of it. So since there's no purpose of this bill, whether it's an investigation or an oversight, and that's what I want to know, is it investigative or is it oversight? And if it's going to be oversight so that you can better protect us in the long run, then it's a green for me. But if it's investigative, then it's a red. I don't waste, don't take my goddamn money and spend it on an investigation and turn it into a law that's giving you the right to investigate without any kind of you're taking away legal rights of people by making it a law to investigate. You don't do that. So let me know, is it an investigation or is it oversight? If it's oversight, great. I love it. I think it's a great thing. I love it all the way through, even the non-transparent part, because that's, again, protecting the public from things that may not have an effect on them. But if you're investigating things, then it needs to be 100% open to the public, and I don't want that backlash, and I want it to be listed as an investigation. So that's my final thoughts on it. Comments, anybody? Any last words of the day? Any last thoughts?
I'm with you, Paul. I wish that they would be more straightforward about it. It is just a testament to the opaque nature of Congress, and that, you know, I don't think it's law passed for the people. I think it's law passed so that government can do their job more easily, and or get what they want done, and that's, I don't think, the right spirit of things.
I agree. Again, it already passed the House. It's probably going to pass the Senate. And again, I can point out a lot of other bills just like this that I think are, again, investigative bills. And that's what I think this is. Reggie, last thoughts?
I think, I think that this bill is, to me, it's an example of big government regulation, basically. And in a way, it forces a lot of the onus, not necessarily on the government, but the telecommunications companies, like Verizon and T-Mobile and all these agencies within the United States, to be more transparent in case something happens, or if their network is down, via ransomware attack or something of that nature. It forces them to be more transparent, but it really doesn't force the government to do anything except for create these regulations and then, like you said, investigate later. So that way they can sit there and shift the blame on them instead of taking the onus on themselves and saying, hey, we created this big government regulation. Now we can investigate whenever your system goes down, and we can be down Apple's throat or down Google's throat. And I think that's just counterproductive. I think that if they wanted to do oversight, and I agree with you on that, Paul, do oversight. I honestly think it's better that way as opposed to this being introduced.
Jack?
For me, I think that the points by Nick and Reggie made were pretty succinct. I do think it's important to focus on our cybersecurity, especially in a day and age where our technology is rapidly advancing, and we need to have the scope and skills to not just educate people on good practices, but for the mechanics and the algorithms and the software that goes into these products, make sure that the companies are responsible for ensuring the privacy and protection of those that use it. In theory, this bill is great. I feel like there are a lot of things that make this really both convoluted as well as potential for abuse. And so I think that there needs to be a lot more thought going into this, possibly with amendments to counter that or vote the bill down.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. And stick around for an after show conversation and all that. Again, I'm going to put up here at the end, I'm going to put up the suicide hotline. Remember, our mics are still open. Remember, everyone, be happy, be kind, and may good things come your way. And then, of course, if you're somebody that is having suicide thoughts or is in a traumatic crisis, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Dial 988 or call 1-800-273-TALK. Thank you again, everybody, and have a good day. Thank you.